Hello there and welcome to Unqualified Opinions. I'm Marco Yerkovich.
And I'm Unqualified Opinions draft expert Will Byerman, and today I'm going to be breaking down my top 10 picks for the upcoming NFL draft.
Alright, but before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your own unqualified opinions in the comment section down below. So Will, with the first overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock. I wonder who they're going to take.
You know, this is a really difficult one. First pick lets you change your franchise, so I think special teams is a key need for the Jaguars now. Trevor Lawrence has pretty much been assumed to be the number one pick since before we even knew who would be picking first overall. It's really hard to find flaws in his game. That's not to say he's like a certified star right as he steps on the field.
He's not a bona fide Pro Bowler right out of the gate.
But I mean, it's hard to find big flaws in him physically, mentally, and just the way he plays football. He's a pretty safe bet, not to be a star, but the tools are there. He's getting the highest draft grades from experts since pretty much Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning.
Certainly, he's one of those all-time draft prospects that, of course, Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars will certainly be looking to build their franchise around this new cornerstone first overall pick. Then moving on to a team that recently traded away their first-round pick from 3 years ago. Who do you have them taking?
I believe the New York Jets will be taking Zach Wilson. I'm kind of bummed out, actually. I was really hoping, when I was watching some Zach Wilson film last fall, I was really hoping he wouldn't get that much buzz and would be there around number 7 where Detroit's picking. But he's absolutely taken off. He's mobile. He has an absolute cannon. He's probably one of the best athletes among quarterbacks. He's going to be a hard prospect to pass up on for the Jets at 2. And, that's really what the buzz is saying. It's going to be extremely unlikely that he's there after the Jets are picking.
All right, so another team that recently made a trade, San Francisco trading up to the third overall pick. Who do you have them taking?
So I have San Francisco taking a player who I'm seeing a ton of buzz on media websites, Twitter, ESPN, places like that. I've heard they're going to take Mac Jones. Now, personally, do I think Mac Jones is a number 3 pick? Absolutely not. I definitely think he's a first rounder, but I don't see the same upside with Mac Jones that I see with guys like Justin Fields and Trey Lance who would be around after him. I wouldn't make this move. However, I've been hearing that San Francisco thinks Jones is the guy. He's the reason they traded up to 3. So that could be smoke, but right now that's what I'm hearing.
I find that completely astounding, considering a few months ago it was thought that the Saints would maybe take a swing at him late in the first round. Then a couple weeks ago, New England in the middle of the first round would maybe be the team that would take a swing on him. And now all of a sudden, he's a top 10, now top 5, now top 3 quarterback. I find this ascension to be really interesting, but that's not to say that he belongs in this group of these top 5 quarterbacks, but this is very surprising to me.
It's really going to come down to Kyle Shanahan wanting to get his guy.
Yeah.
We saw it last year.
It's one of the 3 quarterbacks left that will be taken here. That's quite obvious.
We saw it with Daniel Jones last year, a prospect who I liked at the time. He hasn't worked super great, but you see the potential. You see why they want him in the system. If Mac Jones is getting drafted here, it's because Kyle Shanahan thinks he's like the perfect fit.
Absolutely. Now to a team that has been struggling for the past few years despite, a really prolific offense and a great quarterback, the Atlanta Falcons picking at number 4.
So with Atlanta, we didn't say this in the intro, but we are doing no trades mocks.
Yeah, no trades.
So
very hard to predict.
Now, I think Atlanta likely will heavily explore trading down. They have too many needs.
Yeah, there's been actually a lot of reports that they are exploring it, and then possibly if the guy they want is not there at number 4, they will likely trade back with one of the options. There's been talks that they've been exploring quite a lot.
I don't think they're taking a quarterback if they're not taking it. I think if they trade down, I don't think they're taking a quarterback because they still have a pretty heavy Matt Ryan extension on the books. So that's why I'm going to go with Trey Lance here at number 4 in the no trades draft, because Trey Lance is a Patrick Mahomes type where you probably do sit him for his first season. So you could sit. Lance has amazing tools. He's from North Dakota State, so not a lot of buzz, but he did not throw any interceptions in his first year as a starter since replacing Nebraska boy Easton Stick. at North Dakota State. Lance has elite physical tools. The competition is going to be a question, so I think that's why he's a perfect Falcons pick here. You can sit him for a full season, even more while Matt Ryan's $40 million contract runs off the books, and then you can make him as a starter. I think it's a pretty good pick for them there.
Absolutely. The one thing I will say is it's quite interesting. I think Matt Ryan's only about 36 years old, which in today's NFL is extremely young. He might be only 3/4 of the way through his career. I mean, he quite possibly has 5-6 years left, so it might be a little bit premature to draft Trey Lance or any quarterback, for that matter, this early in Matt Ryan's career. However, that being said, you cannot anticipate how drastically or how soon a quarterback will decline. The other thing to bring up here is the fact that the Falcons are a semi-decent team. I don't predict them drafting this low for a very long time. So yeah, I think it's a good decision to take the quarterback now, sit him for 1, 2, possibly 3 years, and then let him be the star after that. So next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals on the clock at number 5.
The Bengals are going to be my team to watch in the draft because I just think they're at such a great position at number 5. They have their quarterback of the future. I loved Joe Burrow last year, still love him now. He showed some great signs being a star as a rookie, but he needs help, and they're in the best position to get him here at 5. There's 3 guys it kind of came down to. Offensive line is just an absolute travesty in Cincinnati, and you don't want to see Joe Burrow taking as many hits as he did last year. So I've thought about Penei Sewell, but I think the pick that would make the most, I think that's the pick I would make, but the pick I'm hearing the most buzz for, and I think that they'd like the most is Jamar Chase, the wide receiver from LSU. He sat out last year, but I mean, if you look back 2 seasons ago, him and Joe Burrow had a pretty legendary connection. Jamar Chase is probably the best wide receiver in the draft class, and he's just an absolutely dynamic player. I would take a lineman, but I can't blame them for going with Jamar Chase.
Yeah, so the top 4, at least the top 3 is a quarterback guaranteed, and you even have Trey Lance going to the Falcons at 4. So at 5 is really the first time, at least in your draft or in most people's drafts, that we see a player other than a quarterback come off the board. And the discussion that you alluded to for the Bengals is, do we go wide receiver or do we go lineman? And here you went wide receiver, and I really can't pick a side. You can argue both options. And of course, Jamar Chase is a great talent. So he's going at number 5 to the Bengals in your mock. So now let's move on to number 6, the Miami Dolphins, who traded down with a deal with the 49ers and the Eagles that now has them at the number 6 spot.
I haven't really made the big board per se yet, but definitely top 4 prospect for me is going to be Kyle Pitts, the tight end from University of Florida. Just unreal athleticism. And tight ends, we've seen a couple over the past few years who have gotten picked in the top 10, like TJ Hawkinson. But Pitts you can put him at pretty much any, you can put him in the slot, you can put him at tight end, you can put him out wide. He's just an absolutely amazing receiving talent. He had a crazy pro day. He showed off strength and athleticism. I think I would definitely have him in the mix at 5, but I think there at 6. I think he's pretty much the perfect prospect for really any team picking at that area. He's a great value player.
So the one thing I will say about Kyle Pitts is I think he is the only player that I would be willing to put money on and guarantee that coming straight out of the draft in his first season, that I think he can be a Pro Bowler in the NFL day 1.
Agreed.
It obviously will depend on what conference he goes to and how much usage he gets, but being drafted this early, he's going to a team like Miami that is in need of receiving talent. So I think it's very well possible he could be a Pro Bowler day 1 in the NFL. So now moving on to your team, the Detroit Lions, on the clock at number 7.
I'm still going to be dreaming of Zach Wilson as a Detroit Lion until the moment he gets his name called at 2.
Jared Goff, he's your guy now.
Jared Goff is our guy now. That is a statement that has to be made. But I think Detroit's definitely going to try to trade out of this spot. Ideally, I'd like to see them trade back to the middle of the 10s and take Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State. But if they stick around here, I think they take Jalen Waddle, wide receiver from Alabama, and I see no problems with that. That's a player who I'd love to end up with if he's still around in the teens. I think I like Chase just a little bit more, but Waddle's a great receiving talent, and the Lions have pretty much nothing at receiver.
Yeah, they
now.
need to replace Kenny Golladay. So the second wide receiver off your board, Jalen Waddle at number 7. Now moving on to the Carolina Panthers, who did trade for Sam Darnold, got him from the Jets in exchange for basically nothing. I mean, a 6th round pick this year and a 2 and a 4 next year for a guy who could be a future franchise cornerstone. So the Carolina Panthers have Sam Darnold at the quarterback spot, but who will they take at number 8?
I mean, anytime you're giving up a 2nd round pick, you're definitely putting a big vote of confidence on the guy, because a 2nd round pick in the NFL is usually presumed to be a starter at some point within his first 2, 3, even 1 years. But I think the Panthers, if this draft shakes out the way I'm mocking it to, will go away from day one as a major winner, because they need lineman help. And in this scenario, they take Penei Sewell, who's one of the best offensive linemen prospects we've seen in years. He liked Jamar Chase. He did sit out, but just extremely difficult to find flaws in his performance. He can play left tackle, right tackle. The Panthers basically would get a potential franchise left tackle without having to move around the board at all. And that's a massive win. Left tackle is, we're seeing from the contracts that are being thrown out, left tackle is one of the premium positions in the NFL now. And the Panthers get a chance to get it without moving from 8. Huge win for them.
Absolutely. One of the premier talents in this draft falling to the Panthers at number 8. So now moving on to the Denver Broncos, who are on the clock at number 9.
So because we're not doing trades, I'm going to have I think the Broncos are another team that could trade down potentially. But here, I'm going to assume that they're not thrilled with Drew Lock, who, sidebar, I have a pretty good quarterback draft hit rate. I had Josh Allen as the number 1 prospect in his draft class. I usually do pretty good, but Drew Lock was definitely a guy I missed on. I had him above every other quarterback in that draft class. That has not looked great so far. He's shown some really great flashes, especially in the last couple weeks of last season. But in this scenario, the John Elway and the powers that be decide that it's time to move on from Lock, or at least bring in competition, and they'll take Justin Fields here. I think I'd have him, personally, if I had to rank the Big 5, as they're being called, Justin Fields is probably the 4th ranked quarterback for me. I like Wilson and Lance, and of course Lawrence more than him, but I think if the Broncos want to go quarterback and they get Fields at 9, they'll walk away feeling pretty good. Elite arm talent. He's a mobile quarterback.
Yeah, so absolutely. Drew Lock looked like the guy, or at least the guy that Denver would, go with for several years. But now, all of a sudden, over the past few weeks, you've heard little inklings that maybe they want to move on from him. Maybe he's not the guy. I do think the Broncos should give him one more year. I think he only has 20 to 25 starts in the NFL, which I don't think is quite a big enough sample size. I think you need to give someone at least 2 full seasons. While I see this pick making sense and possibly happening, I don't think it would be the right decision for the Broncos. So now we're to the last pick in this mock draft top 10. The Dallas Cowboys are on the clock. Who do you have them taking?
And real quick, just to the last pick, we are doing no trades again, so I don't see a scenario where Justin Fields lasts to number 9. I'm pretty sure that Detroit, Carolina, maybe even Miami are going to make a move down. But on to 10 with the Cowboys. The Cowboys are investing very heavily now in Dak Prescott being the guy who's going to carry their franchise to the next level into the playoffs and hopefully bring them some of the championships that their fans refuse to shut up about ever, despite the fact that it's been a really long time. But one issue they've had for a couple years now is the secondary, and I think at 10 they draft Patrick Surtain too, the cornerback from Alabama. Cornerback has been a position people have been a little hesitant to take in the top 10, aside from the Lions getting Okudah last year, but I think Surtain's definitely a top 10 talent in this draft. He has the potential to be a shutdown cornerback in the NFL, and he could really help the Cowboys out there at position need there. So that's going to be my last pick for the top 10 for this first mock draft, and we're going to have a lot more awesome draft coverage leading up to April 29th when it's all going down.
Absolutely, and of course we will be having an NFL draft live stream on the evening of April 29th, watching right alongside with you before, during, and after the first round of the draft. So that's the end of Will's top 10. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you guys next time.